Everyone, this is John Daly. I'm here again with Bernie Goldberg for another episode of the No BS Zone. How's it going today, Bernie?
It's going well, John. Thank you.
Good, good. So you and I haven't discussed the 2024 presidential race in a while, and since we are about a year out from the general election, we thought we'd talk about the current state of the situation. We're going to start with some national polling, and then get into some state polling, which is showing some different things. Nationally, Biden and Trump have been running neck and neck. Trump has a very narrow lead in some polls, and Biden has a very narrow lead in other polls. Everything has been really within the margin of error. What's interesting to me is that one GOP candidate has not only been beating Joe Biden in those polls, but also beating him outside the margin of error, and that's Nikki Haley. She would seem, at least from this information, to be a better general election bet for Republicans than Donald Trump. Yet Trump still dominates the field among Republicans. He's still at over 50%, while Haley is only registering somewhere between 8 and 12%, depending on the poll. Bernie, what do you think this says just about the general sentiment and the priorities, of Republican voters?
Well, Donald Trump has a hold on them, that's for sure. But one of our regulars, Ben, asked a very good question. And he said, am I wrong in continuing to believe that most Republicans would rather go down fighting with Trump than beat Biden with a capable non-Trump candidate? That was a very good question, especially when Trump was neck and neck with Joe Biden and Nikki Haley was beating, as you say, Joe Biden. So it was a good question. Now there's another good question that just popped up this week. A New York Times Siena College poll found that in 6 of the most important battleground states, and these are states that will decide who wins the election probably, Donald Trump beats Joe Biden by a lot. Let me give you the rundown. In Nevada, Trump beats Biden by 10 points. He beats Biden by 6 points in Georgia. In Arizona and Michigan, Trump wins by 5 points. He wins by 4 points in Pennsylvania. Only Wisconsin is in Biden's corner, and that's by only 2 points. So that leads to another question, John. Would Democrats rather go down fighting than pick somebody else who might beat Donald Trump? And in that Siena College New York Times poll, a generic unnamed Democrat, whoever it is, a generic, beats Donald Trump by 8 points. So Ben's question was a good one last week. And it still is a good one, but the question that updates everything is about whether the Democrats are going to go down fighting with Joe Biden or finally say, Joe, you got to go. It's just time to go.
Yeah, and many people could make the the argument that these state polls, and I think I agree with that, are potentially much more significant than the national polling. I mean, Donald Trump has never won the popular vote in either of his elections, but he was able to pull off that first victory, and he came closer, in 2020 than I think a lot of people were probably expecting at the time. But like you said, yeah, so he is shown beating Biden by these pretty good margins in 5 out of the 6 important swing states. I did want to add a couple of footnotes to those polls, probably worth discussing. The same poll, like you said, also shows Nikki Haley beating Biden in all 6 of those states, and in most of the cases by a wider margin than Donald Trump. But Donald Trump's still, out in front in those polls by a significant lead, as you said. Another point, Amy Walter of the Cook Report, she's a really good political analyst. She pointed out, in looking at these numbers, that Trump has not increased his vote share in any of those states since 2020. He's actually exactly where he was back then. The difference is that Biden's vote share has gone down a fair amount. And so people have sort of, like you said, lost faith in him. And that, I think that there not only looks at a serious question about whether or not Biden is going to be replaced by a different Democrat, that could also hurt him in the case of a third party candidate. Because if you have this, I think he's lost about 5 points roughly in each of these state polls. someone's going to be there to pick that up. I don't think it's going to be Trump. It might be somebody else.
There's one statistic in that poll that may be the most important single statistic because it leads to our next segment about whether Joe Biden's coalition is crumbling. I'm going to write about this at some point. And that is, you ready for this? Donald Trump, and by the way, these polls are a snapshot in time. Let's get that on the record.
Yeah,
November 2024 is a whole year away, so a lot can and will change. But this is not the first poll showing Joe Biden in trouble. It's just it's only the latest poll. But here's the most interesting statistic as far as I'm concerned. 22% of Black voters in these battleground states support Donald Trump. Let that sink in. Donald Trump won 6% of the Black vote in 2016 and 8% in 2020, and no Democrat running for president of the United States has gotten less than 80% of the Black vote since the civil rights era began. If Donald Trump really gets 22% of the Black vote, Democrats are done. Their coalition is finished because it depends on a large Black turnout for them to win. If 22% are going to not only not vote for Joe Biden, but will switch parties and vote for Donald Trump, that is a huge number, and it's not getting nearly enough attention, I think.
No, I think that's true. And, like you said, Biden has so many things going against him. He's got inflation, he's got the southern border,
Right.
crime. The one we always talk about here is mental and physical state that's always on display. But now we have, in addition to all that, we have a war going on in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas. And Biden is finding out, it's probably kind of a surprise to him, maybe not, but he's finding out just how much anti-Israel and anti-Jewish sentiment exists on his side of the aisle. I admit, even for me, who had seen it before, it's kind of shocking, just the volume of it. But and it includes, some Democratic members of Congress, and because Biden has been more. I think Biden has been more openly supportive of Israel than I would have even expected him to. But at the same time, we're wondering, Bernie and I have had a few exchanges about this, if this sort of conflict in the Democratic Party now or on the left could peel away even more support for Joe Biden.
Exactly. And this is the big story, that the Democratic coalition may be crumbling. The Black vote we talked about. He may lose the Muslim vote in Michigan, a key battleground state. He could lose the youth vote, which always goes for Democrats because they're more pro-Palestinian, more anti-Israel. And I'm going to say this, some of them are even more anti-Jewish, not just anti-Israel. The progressive wing of the party in general, it doesn't like Joe Biden's staunch support for Israel. If he, you started out by saying inflation and all that. He not only does he have inflation going against him, his age and mental cognitive ability being an issue, not only crime being an issue, the southern border being a very big issue. Not only does he have all that going, now he's got the youth vote, the Muslim vote, the progressive vote. He is not in good shape. I know the election's a year off, and Donald Trump has been fairly quiet recently. And once he goes out and opens his mouth, everything can change. But right now, it is not looking good at all for Joe Biden. And that's not a partisan observation, because I don't do that. It just isn't looking good, because if the whole Democratic coalition, it's not just one issue. It's the youth vote. It's all of it, the Muslim vote, the progressive vote, the Black vote. This is what makes Democrats win elections. And if they abandon Joe Biden, it's over.
One person who's been outspoken about Biden, and he came out a lot and talked about these Sierra New York Times polls, was David Axelrod. So he was Barack Obama's old campaign manager. but he's been sort of ringing the panic bell on this. I thought that was sort of interesting because I know there has been some conflict between those two camps over the years. It doesn't get a lot of publicity between Team Biden and Team Obama. I think there's a lot going on. But no, it's interesting for him to come out there and say it. I think also considering that I believe it was a year before the election, the year before the 2012 election, which Obama ultimately went on to win for re-election. But he was doing quite not well in the polls either. I don't know if we can compare it to Joe Biden, but he might have even been doing a little bit worse now that I think about it. But a year had changed. They put in place a different campaign. But I don't think, that's a good point, but I don't think there's really the kind of energy behind the Biden campaign that there was behind the Obama campaign. They were very
that's a crucial point. Now, David Axelrod is not just some guy who's a Democratic strategist. He's an important voice in the Democratic Party. And when he came out and said Joe Biden needs to think about dropping out because Donald Trump could beat him, that's essentially what he said, right, John?
Right.
Okay. He is only saying out loud what a whole bunch of Democrats are saying privately. And the fact that he's a politically savvy guy, the fact that he did say it out loud on national television, I think it was on CNN, the fact that he did that, he knew what he was doing. He was sending a message out. Everybody, who's privately saying it, they don't want to say it out loud because they think they'll hurt Joe Biden. But if they don't say anything at all and Biden is the nominee, and if Biden loses, they're going to wish they did say something out loud. And time is running out because the later it gets, the more difficult it's going to be for Gavin Newsom or the mayor of Michigan, Whitmer, or whoever. And we're not even talking about Kamala Harris, who if some white guy from California becomes the nominee and Kamala Harris doesn't, they have another problem. They're going to lose even more of the black vote if that happens. So David Axelrod is sending a signal. He's politically knowledgeable. He knows what he's doing. It's one thing to say it privately behind closed doors. It's another thing to say it on national television. He knew what he was doing. He was trying to send a message. Joe, think very hard about this. If you care about the party, if you care about your legacy, if you want to go down in history as a heroic president, perhaps in the mold of FDR, if that's what you want to think, get out now, because if you stay in and lose, that's going to be your legacy. You lost to Donald Trump and enabled him to be president a second time.
No, I agree with all that. And I think I wrote in a column a few months ago that Biden, his appeal in 2020, people saw him as a transitional president, as someone who could get us out of the Trump situation, get the country out of the Trump situation. And he did that. But once he got those unexpected majorities in Congress, I think he saw himself as a transformational president. So he was focused on all these other things, and I think he still thinks of himself that way. He sees himself as this person who the Democratic Party needs, and they really don't. They really don't need him. I think we've seen people, Dean Phillips. I don't know if he's going to go anywhere. Gavin Newsom, you brought up some others, but yeah, I think any of these people would do significantly better than Biden, and I don't think Biden is yet convinced of that.
So Ben's question about whether the Republicans would rather go down fighting, as he put it, and stick with Donald Trump when Nikki Haley would have a better chance of winning. As I say, that was a great question when he asked it. But now we have to ask another question. Will Democrats prefer to go down fighting with Joe Biden, even though there's not nearly the enthusiasm for Joe Biden as there is on the Republican side for Donald Trump? But would they rather go down fighting with Joe Biden than pick somebody else who would have a better chance of beating Donald Trump? Again, that generic no-name candidate, the invisible Democrat, would beat Donald Trump by 8 points.
Extraordinary. It's an extraordinary situation
It really is. which leads us to my favorite topic today. Schadenfreude.
Can I set this up? Is that
I
okay?
hope we disagree on this.
Okay, yeah, we do. So the last thing we're going to talk about was actually, and it actually has nothing to do with the election. It came out of a question the emperor asked last week. It's about Schadenfreude. I hope I'm saying that right. It's a German term that many of us are aware of now that means taking pleasure from another person's misfortune. Now, Bernie, you say that you are a big fan of Schadenfreude when it comes to things like an easy on crime district attorney being carjacked in a city, or a Democratic mayor in a sanctuary city freaking out over all the immigrants now flooding their city. Do I have that right, Bernie? Is that your position?
You not only have that right, if you look in the dictionary for Schadenfreude, my picture is right there. And I wasn't specifically talking about the emperor's question about the district attorney whose car was stolen or whatever. What happened to the
He was
car?
carjacked when his mom was
Yeah.
with him.
Although I'm with the emperor on that too. I felt good about, I didn't want anybody to get hurt,
Right.
but now he understands what other people have gone through. But my specific Schadenfreude issue was with the Democratic mayors of New York, Chicago, and other places that are saying, oh, please, we have too many immigrants here. These people never cared when immigrants were flooding El Paso, Texas, or other towns on the border. They never opened their mouths about that. And now we're supposed to feel sorry for them? No, Schadenfreude, taking pleasure in somebody else's misfortune. That's what I'm doing. I am Mr. Schadenfreude on this. And I know that you're a nicer person than I am, John. And I hope you're taking another position so I could laugh at you.
Right. So my position is that, and this I said this in my answer to the emperor. I'm just not a big person on Schadenfreude, and I hope I'm saying that right. In general, it's not my thing. To be clear, I have no problem at all with people learning hard lessons from their own mistakes. That's part of life, and it's part of growing up as a person and as a politician, I guess too, potentially. But my only point is that I tend not to take pleasure in other people's hardships, and that includes self-invited hardships. What I'm big on, I'm big on justice. I'm big on accountability, but I don't find myself rejoicing in others' misery, which might make me a weak person politically. That might even make me a rhino, from what I understand. But yeah, that's sort of my position, and it's not like I feel I'm some sort of way morally superior to anybody. It's just sort of, I think it's my personality. I've seen times when people I really don't like are hit with a gut punch over something, and it still makes me feel sort of sympathetic for them.
Yes,
I understand what you're saying. This is a little different, but yeah, go ahead.
yes, that was a very nice, why don't you pat yourself on the back? That's it. Very nice explanation of why you're such a good person, John, and I'm such an evil SOB. Very nice. And I thought we were friends, and you did that. I'm willing to accept that on this matter, you're a better person than I am, but I am very proud of the fact that I am taking pleasure in the misery of these Democratic mayors who didn't care one damn whit about the misery of mayors along the Texas and the southern border who were being flooded by illegal immigrants. Now they care about it. I almost said a bad word here. Too freaking bad. Schadenfreude. That's me. I love it. I love the fact that they're saying, oh, please stop it. No, screw you. They deserve it. They deserve it. And you know what? As I say, you're a better person than I am. If you care to be a snowflake and a cupcake, and maybe you'll need a little puppy to make you feel better about, the fact that, that you're such a nice guy, and you're hurt by people like me who have the Schadenfreude thing. If you need a safe space or something, John, I understand that. But I'll bet you the people listening to, if we took a poll, I'll bet you they'd be on my side and not on your side. And that's because they all believe in Schadenfreude just like I do.
Oh, I think that's probably true. We should have a BernardGoldberg.com poll on this. I'm sure we can pull that off somewhere. But as you can see, I'm sort of doing a lot of weird stuff in my head because I'm getting a weird lighting stuff on my face. We're doing this a little bit earlier than we usually do in the morning, so that's what's going on there. But yeah, no, it's. I think you're probably right. And in the world of politics, I think it's very easy to feel that way. Yeah, I don't think you're a bad person, Bernie. I get it. And like I said, I'm all for lessons being learned, hopefully being learned, and people sort of encountering the results of their own bad actions and mistakes.
John,
So
John, there's a bright spot.
I know
You know what that is? I figured it out.
it's
That's
a halo.
that's the angel.
Yeah,
That's the angel shedding his light on a good person like you. And you don't have to do that. You can let that, but
it's in my eye. It's a weird. We're doing this early in the morning. I should have thought about this. The sun wasn't even up yet when we started. And now it's
the
coming right.
angel, well, that's the angel, John. And the
All right.
angel is directing the sunlight from heaven on your face to say you're a good person. And you know what the bad angel is saying about me? That's it. He's saying, I can't even see you, Bernie. You're not a good person.
Well, Bernie, I think you're a good. I think you're a good
Ask
person.
me if I care. Ask me if I care.
Do you care?
No.
Okay. Very good. All right. Well, that sounds like probably a good place to end things for this week. If everybody, let us know what you feel about taking pleasure in others' misery. We'd like to hear it in the comment section. Also, as always, let us know how we're doing. Let us know what topics you want to talk about, and just let us know all your feedback. Bernie, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Just that I really enjoyed today's No BS Zone. I liked it. I always like it, but I really like today's a lot.
Good, good. I enjoyed it as well. Thanks everybody, and
We,
Bernie,
we may be the only two. We may be the only two who liked it, but at least we liked it.
the good news is that most of the feedback we get is usually pretty good. So it's people can let us know if this was different. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. It's always enjoy sort of strolling off into little silly areas too. So yeah, that's a lot of fun. So thanks, Bernie. You have yourself a great day. Okay.
You too, John. Thank you.